Right, thanks a lot for everybody for joining me on a Saturday. My session, Accessibility Considerations in Power BI, Designing for Everyone. Uh, my name, for those who don't know me, my name is Juliana Smith. My background is actually in physical oceanography. So I started my career in data science and ocean research. And since 2020, I have specialized in Power BI and user interface design. And for the past 20 months, I have deep dived into digital accessibility. I have a blog called Smart Frames UI and a YouTube channel called Accessible BI, where I share insights on Power BI as well as accessible design. So today's session, we're going to talk very briefly about what is digital accessibility, and then we're going to learn about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and the core principles, and then how we can translate the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines into dashboard design. I'm going to give you some practical tips, as well as how we can get started with accessibility using CRAP method, and then we're going to wrap up the session. So, globally, over 1 billion people, or about 15 to 16% of the population, live with some form of disability. Digital accessibility aims to make websites, apps, and other digital interfaces usable for everyone, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, or circumstances. And this means that all users should be able to perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with digital interfaces without facing any barriers. And when we design digital products, including Power BI reports, accessible, we ensure that all individuals, including those with disabilities, can access important information and services. We also promote inclusivity and equal opportunities for everybody in society. And of course, digital accessibility helps organizations to comply with legal requirements, reducing the risk of lawsuits, as well as helping to enhance reputation. And then finally, digital accessibility enhances user experience for everyone, right? So it's not only for who relies on accessibility features. So it helps making interfaces more intuitive and easy to navigate. So it is a win-win. Let's now understand what is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is known for short as WCAG, and the core principles. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, globally recognized standards, and it was designed to make digital content accessible to people with disabilities. It was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, and the most recent version, so the one that is being used, is WCAG 2.2, and it's been officially used since October 2023. Although the draft for 3.0 is already available on their website. On the current version, there are 13 guidelines across 4 principles, which are known as POUR, and there are in total 87 success criteria. Of course, not all of these criteria are applicable to Power BI design. And WCAG also outlines 3 levels of compliance, which is level A, AA, and AAA, and we're going to look into each one of them as well. So let's start by talking core principles. What is core? So first we have, for P, we have perceivable. So that is the first principle, which means that users should be able to recognize and use services and tools through one or more of their senses. So a good example would be, for example, the use of caption for any video, or alternative text for no-text elements. The next one is operable, where the user interface components and navigation must be operable using various input methods, and that includes using keyboard navigation. Then we have U for understandable, where the digital content and interfaces are easy to read, they are predictable in behavior, and they are designed to help users to avoid or to rectify errors. And then finally, we have R for robust, where content must be robust enough to be interpreted in a reliable way by assistive technologies such as screen readers. In terms of levels of compliance, we have level A that addresses the most basic accessibility features, so it's suitable just for some users. We have level AA that addresses the most common barriers for users, and it aims to make digital content accessible to a wider range of people. And level AAA, which addresses the highest level of accessibility, providing the most inclusive experience for our users, including those with significant disabilities. Level AA is the most commonly mandated, including in the UK, in the US, and in the European Union. So this is because it covers a wide range of conditions, and as well, it is practical to implement. Now, let's see how we can translate this WCAG into dashboard design. So first, let's translate the core principle. So for perceivable, what do we mean? It means that our reports and dashboards should be easy to see and read. So we need to use clear text, strong color contrast, and alternative text for visuals, so everybody, including those who rely on screen readers, can access information. Making our reports operable means that users should be able to navigate and interact with the reports using keyboard or assistive technologies. So we have to make sure that all elements, for example, are compatible to navigation. We have to avoid any navigation trap, and we have to ensure that we have the correct tab order. Making our reports understandable, it means that the layout and behavior should be predictable and easy to follow. We should also use plain language, consistent iconography, as well as naming conventions. And we can provide additional information so users don't get confused or stuck, so they would know how to use the report. And to make our reports robust, it means that our dashboards, they need to be compatible across devices, browsers, and assistive technologies. So Power BI is compatible by default with screen readers, for example. But we have to structure our visuals with clear labels, and we should also test functionalities in different environments. So, for example, you may have mobile view and desktop view. So now let's see some tips that will help us to follow those core principles. So first of one is support screen readers. So we should provide alternative text for all non-text elements in our report. And alternative text provides a meaningful description of images, and that will aid the screen readers in conveying what is the content. So I have here, for example, this chart, and I have the option to type in what is the alternative text. And if you do that, there is a limit of 250 characters. Or I can also add a conditional format. So I can create text to create a more dynamic alternative text. So it means that you don't have to go back every month to change the alternative text. And it can also help if you have slices on the page, for example. You can make it dynamic. So here is an example of how I wrote these alternative text using DAX. And when we do that, we don't have a limitation number of characters. Next, ensuring effective keyboard navigation. So not all users rely on a mouse, and we have to ensure that our keyboard navigation is right. And Power BI is by default compatible with keyboard navigation, but from the development side, there is something very important that we have to ensure, which is a logical tab order. So the tab order should match the visual layout, ensuring intuitive and predictable navigation flow. So which means if you open a report and just use the key, the tab key to navigate your report, it should go in the sequence that the users are intended to consume your visual. And we need to manually check if the order that is already there is correct. So if you go in the selection pane close to layer order, which is a completely different thing, if you click on tab order, you're going to see here how it's ordered. And if you need to change it, just click on it and use the arrows to move it up and down. And then we have maintain a required contrast ratio. So a high contrast between any foreground and background. Foreground means text, icons, images, charts. If we maintain a high contrast, it will significantly improve readability. And we can follow the WCAG threshold. So if we follow the level of compliance AA, which is the most commonly mandated, for body text, we should ideally have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. Large scale, which is above 18 points, or if in bold, above 14 points, the contrast ratio should be of 3 to 1. And for non-text elements, that includes icons and the colors we select to use in our charts, the color contrast ratio should be of 3 to 1. We also have here the thresholds for level of compliance, AAA, which does not specify the contrast ratio for non-text elements. So we should definitely stick to at least 3 to 1. And this means that I have here an example. The page on the top is what we should not do. And we have to keep in mind that we are not designing a report for ourselves. So even if you think it looks cool, it looks sleek, there are even environment lighting can affect in how you see a report. And if our user is squinting their eyes to see it, they will not have a good experience. And then try, if you see here, the option on the bottom, you have more contrast or on all the elements you have on the page. Now, tooltips and accessible alternatives. So tooltips are great to add context without adding clutter to your page. So you can use hover over options to give additional information, although they're not compatible with screen readers. So we should also provide an alternative accessible option. So the option is I added a button, and my button, there is a hover over here saying what it's doing, and the same information I added on the alternative text box. So everybody has access to important information. Next, use clear fonts. So here we have the concept of legibility, which is the ease of each individual letters and words to be distinguished and read. So we have two main font families, which are serif, which are typeface that include decorative strokes at the end of the letter. So you can see here the option on the right, Times New Roman is an example of serif. And we have sans serif font, which is clean, modern style without a small projecting line called serif. So it doesn't have the same decorative elements as the serif. So here we have on the left the example of a sans serif font, Verdana. And sans serif fonts are better for legibility and accessibility because of their clean and simple shapes. It will make letters easy to recognize, especially on screens, small screens. But we also have to be aware that even within this sans serif family, I have here an example of two fonts. We have Verdana on the left and Arial on the right. And you can see here the difficulty in identifying the so I and lowercase L on Arial, they look exactly the same. And illustration, you can see the word we're using Verdana, capital Y is different from lowercase L. So we have to be aware how distinguishable the characters are. And then don't even talk about when you start adding numbers. Right. So in terms of font size, the criteria at WCAG is not applicable to Power BI, but we should consider how small we're using our fonts. So larger text will reduce eye strain and will help readers to quickly recognize words. And although Power BI allows you to use 8 points as the smaller size, do not do that. Aim for at least 12 points. And if your canvas in size increase, if you want to make it larger, your fonts will have to get larger as well. So this is not good. Do not feel tempted, but don't do it. Don't use size 8. Make sure that everything's visible, which means you're going to have perhaps less visual on your page, but that when we reduce clutter, we also improve user experience, right? So it's not because we can add 20 visuals that we should add 20 visuals. Next is consistency. So visual elements, interactions, and data representation should follow a predictable and uniform pattern across all the pages of a report. So position where you put your slices, KPI cards, color that you use, for example, to represent actual costs and forecast costs. Terminology, if you use end of month and the month end, you have to be consistent across all your views. And it's quite easy to get overwhelmed when we start talking about accessibility. WCAG is not a straightforward guidelines to read and understand. It wasn't designed initially for Power BI. It was more for web development. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, there is a really good way to get started, which is using this method that's CRAP. So if those words together will make a very familiar word, and I'm sure you're going to remember. So let's see what it is. So these design principles, CRAP, support accessibility because embeds clarity and structure into visual communication from the outset. So let's start with C for contrast. When we apply contrast, we ensure that key elements stand out, and that aids our users with visual or even cognitive impairments to better understand what we have. Next, we have R for repetition, and that reinforces consistency, helping users to navigate and understand content more intuitively. So we spend less time trying to understand how to use a report, and we can spend more time actually making effective use and getting insights out of it. And then for A, we have alignment. So alignment creates a logical flow and reduce cognitive load and also improve readability, especially for screen readers users. And finally, we have P for proximity. So it means that we group related items together, making relationships between elements clearer, and this will help enhancing comprehension. So designing with these CRAP method does not only improve aesthetics, but it lays a strong foundation for inclusive and user-friendly experience. So wrapping up this session, here are the key points. Designing for accessibility ensure that all users can effectively interact with Power BI reports. We can definitely get insights from WCAG standard because it will help us to ensure compliance and will help enhancing usability for diverse audiences, even for those who don't rely on accessibility features. And by applying these technical practical techniques that I mentioned here, it will help you to create inclusive reports and will lead to a better engagement and understanding for all users. There is a lot on accessibility in Power BI. I have here on the right two QR codes for a couple of videos that I posted on my YouTube channel that will explain how to, for example, edit your tab order and how to you can check your color contrast ratio to ensure that you comply with those color contrast ratio. There is also a very good session delivery by Valerie Junk. That's the QR codes for the recording that she walks through every single one of the built-in accessibility features in Power BI. Elena Drakulewska also posted on her blog, Moon Story, a really, really good accessibility checklist. It's definitely worth having a look. And you can have it And I think as you get used to design with accessibility, it gets to a point that it's done without even thinking. It's already part of your process. So thanks a lot for watching. Happy to answer any question.